for Allegheny County Sanitary Authority.
Hello, my name is Justin Weaver, and I am a chemist at the Allegheny County Sanitary Authority, also known as ALCOSAN.
What we do is we treat wastewater. Wastewater is not the water that comes from your sink. That is drinking water, and that comes from a different company. That comes from a water treatment company. So what they do is they take water out of the river, they treat it, they clean it, they send it to our house. Wastewater is whenever you use this water. So if you wash your hands, if you brush your teeth, take a shower, wash dishes, your clothes, clean your house, like say you have a bucket and you have water and some pine sol in there and you scrub the floor and you put it down the toilet, anything you flush down the toilet. If you go to the bathroom or if you're dumping your cleaning water down there. Goes down a pipe, goes in the sewer, goes to ALCOSAN. Other water that we receive there is from rainwater or melting snow, whenever that comes. But homes and rainwater from the streets aren't the only things that we get. We also get water from industries, and that's where I come into play. I'm an industrial waste investigator sampler at ALCOSAN.
ALCOSAN is a wastewater treatment plant, and we take pretty much any water that goes down the drain in the city of Pittsburgh and most of Allegheny County. That water finds its way to our plant where we treat it to remove solids and then ultimately clean that water through a multi-step process so that the water is clean enough to release into the Ohio River. In fact, at the end of our process, the water that we release into the river is cleaner than the river itself.
So a typical day for me, I do something honestly different but the same every day, if that makes any sense. So my job is the same, being that I'm doing the same thing. I'm always guarding the water. I'm guarding my plant because me and my colleagues, the other industrial waste people, we're the front line. We have to make sure everything's okay that's coming to the plant before it even gets there. So I get to work, I wear a uniform, and I also have a big truck. So I have to make sure my truck has everything that I need throughout the whole entire day. I need to have different kinds of bottles to take samples. I need to have different pumps to pump the water up to make sure that I can get the sample. I need to have flashlights and screwdrivers. And I need to have pickaxes because sometimes I gotta open up a big manhole like in the middle of the street. I need to make sure that I have my safety vest. We have flags that we direct traffic with. We have all sorts of safety equipment. I also have to make sure I have a hard hat in my van, safety glasses. Sometimes I have to wear a mask so that I'm able to breathe in clean air. I have a long sleeve shirt. I'm always wearing rubber gloves. I have long pants on and steel toe boots. And probably, if you were to see me out doing my job, you wouldn't even recognize me. You'd probably walk right past me. But that's okay because I'm being safe. So we make sure that the truck's all ready. We make sure that we have the right safety equipment, and we go and visit places. Sometimes they know that we're coming, sometimes they don't, because we want to make sure that they can't prepare for us being there. For example, if they know that we're coming, like a restaurant knows that we're coming, they won't put grease down the drain. But if we surprise them and like, oh, we're here, we already took the sample, they didn't know. So then we can see if they're doing the right thing or not. We walk around their facilities. So sometimes we do have to meet people and they know that we're coming. and we make sure that chemicals aren't near any drains. Because at some factories, they store big, dangerous chemicals. And what if one of those containers that they keep the chemicals in, if they got punctured and that leaked into a drain, that wouldn't be any good. So we have to make sure that their chemicals aren't near drains, and we have a bunch of rules and regulations that they have to follow. So like a policeman makes sure that everybody follows the rules and regulations, such as how fast to go in a car and things like that. We do that with what people put down the drain in industries.
There are a lot of different average days as a chemist in the lab at ALCOSAN because um, I'm qualified to do different tests, and so I don't always do the same test every day. But my most typical job is to analyze metals, and so that's what I'll describe today. I come in at 7:30, and at that time, I will take a look to see which samples have been um, brought in the previous day, and I decide what samples I will be starting to analyze that day. The process is it involves a couple different steps. First of all, I measure the samples and I cook them in a mixture of acids for several hours, pretty much the whole day. I do this in a piece of equipment called a hot block. And then the next day, once those samples have cooked for several hours, it cooled down, then I will add the water that was evaporated in that process, and then I start to analyze them on a machine called an ICP. The ICP, it stands for inductively coupled plasma. It's actually a pretty complicated name for something that looks fairly simple from the outside. But what an ICP does is it generates a plasma which looks like a flame. Actually, a flame is a plasma, but this plasma that we use is not made by burning something. And when you put metal particles into a flame or any other plasma, they emit light. So the amount of light and the color of light that the the metals generate, I can use that information to determine how much of each different metal is in the samples I test. So uh, in the morning when I'll set up samples to digest or to cook in the acid, and then after that I'll start running samples from the previous day or the day before on the instrument. So if you look at me at the instrument, you might think I'm not doing anything because you see me like sitting and looking at a computer monitor, but really I'm carefully looking at different factors that are coming up in the analysis. So I want to make sure that the instrument's operating properly. These instruments are kind of complicated, and complicated machines sometimes don't always work perfectly. Um, so I will make sure that all the parts of the instrument are working. I'm also looking for any kind of weird results that might indicate that I have to do a dilution, or I may need to um, do some other kind of change with the sample. Or I may even have to switch a part out because there's some samples that are really dirty and they mess up the equipment. So I'm always monitoring that in the course of the day. And then once the instrument has done its thing and given me results, then I report those results um, and hand that data over to our um, administration, who basically goes through and checks to make sure that all the numbers I've entered are actually the numbers that came from the instrument and that everything looks correct. In science, you always need to have another person look at your work to make sure that you didn't miss something.
As far as an education, so to work at ALCOSAN, you only need In some jobs, you only need a high school degree. Other jobs, you need a college degree. The job that I have, you only need a high school degree, but you have to take a test in order to work for the plant. So you take the test, and then you work your way up to where I'm at. So once you're where I'm at, you have to take 2 years of courses at the plant to learn my job. So I've been at my job for like 4 years. So for the past 2 years, I've been training different people on how to do my job. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, which is law enforcement. And then I also have a master's degree in education. So I do use both of those degrees in my job, although you don't need a degree. I would say a little more than half of my department has a college degree, and some don't. So it depends on what you want to do, if you want to go to school or not. If you'd like to learn more how ALCOSAN treats the wastewater, please visit www.alcosan.org, and we actually have how we treat wastewater, and you can click on it and it shows you pictures, and it has a little diagram of what each picture is about. So hope all of you are safe and healthy.
For me to do this job as a chemist, I needed to go to school for 4 years. I got myself a bachelor's degree in chemistry. Um, you could also have a degree in biology to be qualified for my job. And I've also done work in different labs, and um, I also had to be trained to do things at ALCOSAN because not every lab does all the tests that we do. So some of the tests that we do at ALCOSAN, I had never done them before. I had to learn on the job, and I was trained by other um, analysts who had been doing that job before. Um, and so, even though it sounds like I only need 4 years of education beyond high school to do this job, there's still continual learning. Like, last summer I learned a new test. I could learn a new test tomorrow. you know, there's always something new to learn there. And really, I don't think anybody in the lab, even people who've been there 25 years, I don't think they have done every single test that we do, because we're a pretty large lab. So, um, as far as the education goes, like, it's a bachelor's degree plus learning on the job, and the more experience you have with any kind of analysis, the easier learning new tests will always be.